The XT-97 cruiser shuddered as it breached the planet's upper atmosphere. Commander V hissed in satisfaction at the sensor readings: habitable, moderate gravity, a biosphere teeming with exploitable resources, and best of all, a weak localized energy signature indicating a single underdeveloped settlement. Scan complete, Commander reported V's subordinate Lisk, his thin voice crackling through the bridgecom. Target settlement matches established templates for early-stage civilizations. Armaments? V rumbled, his multifaceted eyes fixed on the schematic of the unsuspecting human colony. Primarily kinetic projectile weaponry, Commander Lisk responded. Large, bulky platforms, low velocity, easily diffused by standard shielding. A dismissive trill escaped V's mandibles. A pathetic display by any advanced species, he scoffed. Lisk curled a thin, rigid tentacle in agreement. These primitive creatures wouldn't know what hit them. Even their distress signals would never reach another star system before the XT-97 completed its civilizing mission. Hail them, Lisk the commander ordered. Let them understand the futility of resistance. Lisk chirped and began tapping into the universal translator matrix. A moment later, a booming synthesized voice echoed across the human settlement's crude comm frequencies. Attention, primitives of this world. You stand in violation of the Zeal Expansive Compact. Surrender your settlement, and you may be spared extermination. The human response was slow. Then, to V's irritation, it crackled faintly over the comm line as a burst of laughter. You hear that, Rusty? A gruff, accented voice echoed. They want us to surrender. Another voice, younger and tinged with awe, replied, I'm patching visuals through to the bridge now, Commander. On the main screen, the image resolved into a grizzled human holding a crude datapad, standing amidst what appeared to be the settlement's command center. Another human crouched beside him, adjusting lenses on a bulky optical device. Hold on, you pompous bastards. The grizzled human drawled into his primitive comm device. Let me get a good look at you. The screen flickered again, resolving into a warped fisheye view of the XT-97. Commander V reflexively curled a tentacle in disgust. These primates were even more aesthetically displeasing up close. Rusty, get me a munitions readout on those things. The gruff human barked. Targeting solutions locked on all visible hostiles, a new voice replied, crisp and far too calm for someone facing imminent annexation. V's antennae twitched in a mixture of amusement and mild affront. This creature dares threaten us? Open a channel, Lisk. I shall enlighten it on the true meaning of power. His words echoed across the human command center, delivered in a synthesized approximation of their barbaric tongue. Your defiance is noted and deemed futile. Our energy shields render your crude projectile weapons obsolete. This conflict has but one logical outcome. Yeah, we get it, the grizzled human interrupted with a dismissive wave of his hand. Big guns, fancy shields, blah, blah, blah. How about this? You fire first. Let's see how obsolete these guns really are. V chittered in genuine laughter. Lisk mirrored his mirth. Had these creatures gone truly mad in the face of overwhelming force? So be it, V boomed. Prepare a low-intensity pulse. Disable their primary structure. A wave of his tentacles sent Lisk scurrying to the weapon controls. A focused energy beam shimmered to life at the bow of the XT-97, a brilliant lance of emerald green that slashed towards the heart of the human settlement. It struck their main command building squarely and did nothing. The humans watched as the coruscating energy field shimmered and dissipated against the crude, blocky structure. Commander V blinked all 6 of his eyes, unsure if his visual receptors had malfunctioned. Commander Lisk's voice was a thin chirp of confusion. The shielding appears inert. No energy transfer of any kind. Impossible. V's bellow echoed across the XT-97 bridge. Cycle the emitters. Increase the power amplitude. Again, the crackling green bolt lanced forth. Again, the results failed to match expectations. No scorching blast marks, no overloading circuits, not even a flicker of the human's crude lights. On the main view screen, the grizzled human let out a low, humorous chuckle. His weathered face tightening into a scowl. All right, boys, he barked. Let them know why you don't bring a pea shooter to a real gunfight. Hi, sorry to interrupt the story, but a lot of you are listening right now and aren't actually subscribed. It's completely free and allows our stories to pop up on your feed much more often. If you're enjoying the story, please consider clicking the subscribe button underneath the video right now. Back to the story. The younger human beside him, the one who had controlled the optical feed, grinned wildly. "With pleasure, sir," he replied, his fingers flying over a chipped, worn control panel with practiced ease. Commander V opened a comm channel, intending to bellow an enraged threat. When an odd droning sound cut through the bridge, it rose rapidly in pitch, an ear-splitting whine that seemed to shake the very hull of the XT-97. He glanced wildly around, searching for the source. Just in time to see a glint of light streaking toward the cruiser. Vree's eyes widened. The primitive projectile was impossibly fast, a blinding speck against the dark veil of space. It struck squarely. The impact visible only as a momentary distortion in the cruiser's shimmering energy shields. Then the distortion bloomed outward, the flawless integrity of the shield collapsing, warping inward. For the briefest second, it seemed as if the very fabric of reality buckled before a yawning hole erupted in the hull of the XT-97. The bridge erupted into chaos. Alarms shrieked in dissonant tones, and flashing lights painted the crew consoles in a riot of crimson and amber. Consoles exploded, showering Lisk and the other crew with debris. Vree himself was thrown from his command chair, tumbling across the tilting deck. Miraculously, the ship held together. Secondary systems kicked in, sealing breaches and desperately rerouting power. Vree scrambled to his feet, a hiss of pain escaping him as one of his tentacles scraped against exposed, sparking circuitry. "Damn it, report," he roared, cutting through the din of alarms and panicked cries. "Primary shield generator offline," Lisk chirped, his voice edged into a panic trill. "Massive hull breach on decks 3 and 4. Life support failing in multiple sections." Another blinding speck flashed in the viewports. This time, it punched straight through the aft auxiliary engine pod, the projectile emerging in a shower of vaporized metal and shredded circuits. The XT-97 shuddered, the rear section erupting in a brilliant flare of exploding plasma. Commander, the younger human's voice filtered through the comms, laced with an odd mix of awe and excitement. "That was a tungsten slug at 10% light speed. How's it taste?" Vree stared in horror at the dissipating debris field that was once a vital part of his pristine cruiser. Their intelligence had been fatally flawed. These weren't bulky platforms or low-velocity weapons. Each was a planet killer in miniature. He snarled, pushing past a cluster of terrified crew members. "Return fire. Target their weapons and placements." The XT-97 lurched violently as its remaining engines desperately pushed it into a chaotic, corkscrewing evasive pattern. Weapon systems flickered back online, targeting arrays desperately locking onto the rapidly shifting positions of the human weapons below. In response, the humans fired again. This time, the projectile was smaller, faster, an impossibly thin sliver of light against the blackness of space. It arched erratically, skipping and spinning in defiance of conventional physics, before punching through the XT-97's central sensor array. Blind. Lisk shrieked, his voice a discordant mix of terror and despair. Primary targeting systems offline. Vree's hearts pounded sickeningly with each report of further damage. These primitives possessed the power to obliterate starships from across a solar system, their projectiles striking with the force of rogue asteroids. The XT-97's vaunted superiority felt comically thin in the face of such raw destructive potential. Concentrate secondary batteries. Overwhelm their point defenses. V commanded, his voice a rasping bellow. A barrage of crackling green energy bolts lanced forth from what remained of the XT-97's arsenal, targeting a cluster of boxy structures surrounding the human command center. The humans must have guessed their intent, for a desperate chatter filled their comm frequencies. But their countermeasures were pathetic net-like objects, small and dim, were hurled before the incoming fire. The crackling energy washed over them, vaporizing them instantly. Except they achieved their aim. Each dissipated in a cloud of chaff or some other substance, momentarily obscuring energy signatures and scattering targeting solutions. By the time the beams found their targets, it was too late. Another flicker of impossibly fast light, and the XT-97 screamed again as another engine pod burst apart. The cruiser shuddered, flying sluggishly now, its fate sealed. Panic swelled and consumed the bridge. Crew members fought, shoved, and trampled one another as they sought escape pods. Yet within the maelstrom, Vree felt a strange surge of clarity. This was no calculated retreat, no organized battle plan. It was a rout of slaughter. The sex-expansive compact, the glorious vision of interstellar dominion, lay in tatters, defeated not by superior strategy, but by the primitive savagery of these apes. In the final moments, The grizzled human's gruff voice returned to the comms, tinged with the faintest hint of pity. All right, listen. I don't know who you are or why you showed up spouting threats, but this is a bad day for you. Pull back now, and maybe, just maybe, we can chalk this up to a misunderstanding. V wanted to bellow defiance, threats, anything to salvage the last fragments of his pride. Yet no words emerged. He could only stare at the viewports as another railgun spat its payload of death, the projectile burning ever closer with impossible swiftness. Incoming on port forward. I can't shake the target lock. The terror had fully overtaken the young technician's voice now. A flicker of movement caught V's attention. The grizzled human, the leader, stood alone amid the chaos of his command center. With a sigh that carried over the comms, he tossed his primitive datapad aside and stood straight, facing the main viewport as if awaiting the inevitable. Then the light swallowed it all, the viewport, the grizzled human, the remains of the human settlement. In that blinding flash, Commander V realized a profound truth. The Exil were not conquerors, merely the latest in a long lineage of fools stumbling blindly into a galaxy far more dangerous than they could ever comprehend. When the light had faded, the XT-97 was no longer a warship but a drifting, crippled hulk. Its once gleaming hull was pockmarked and scorched, vital systems flickering and failing. What remained of Commander V's crew huddled in the few still functional escape pods, their eyes wide with shock and fear. V stood amidst them, his pride fully shattered. Here, at the backwater edge of the galaxy, the Exil's dreams of expansion were not merely thwarted but rendered utterly laughable. Below, the planet seemed unchanged, no grand explosion, no world-shattering impact, just the quiet hum of a human settlement picking up the pieces of an unexpected encounter. A chirp from the escape pod's primitive comm system broke his reverie. It was the gruff voice again, weary and strained. "You still up there, alien? We'll hold off on finishing the job as long as you folks get out of our system and don't come back." Vrei, once an emblem of Exil arrogance, managed a single croaking word in response. Acknowledged. He initiated the pod's launch sequence, the XT-97 dwindling rapidly away. His last image was not of victorious humans celebrating amidst wreckage, nor was it of the vast, unexplored reaches of the galaxy ripe for opportunistic conquest. Instead, it was the bulky form of a human railgun, its ungainly barrel stark against the blue marble of the planet, an unyielding sentinel promising swift annihilation to any who might underestimate the primitive creatures below ever again. As his pod hurtled away, Commander V knew that SEAL would not report this encounter. To do so would invite ridicule or worse, a preemptive strike from other civilizations who understood the true terror humanity possessed. Perhaps in time, the galaxy would learn of the guns that laughed at energy shields, but for now, the secret would remain with the survivors of the XT-97 and the colonists guarding their backwater world. And Commander V wondered just how long that secret could be kept. Cautious observation, mixed with the slow grind of bureaucracy, followed the crippled escape pod's return to the Exil homeworld. Bearing survivors who spoke little and less often about their humiliating defeat, initially dismissed as an isolated freak incident, a stroke of terrible luck, the encounter began to gnaw at the edges of the Exil expansive compact. Whispers started in corridors of power, seeding doubt about the true extent of the Exil's technological supremacy. After all, who knew what other monstrosities might lurk in the galactic wilderness?